So in this video, let us see the top 10 infamous conmen. Conmen, that means conmen means who cheats or tricks someone by gaining their trust and persuading them to believe something that is not true. So a kind of cheating or fraud. So top 10 infamous conmen. Let us see the number 10. Frank Abagnale, born in 1948. Frank Abagnale started taking risks at an early age. Always want to find a new way around the system. Frank escalated the risks with each new scheme. He seemed driven to make each one bolder than the last. One thing that stood out about Frank was his youth and sheer boldness. Frank liked to make a quick turnover, but didn't shy away from the long con. From drafting of others' banking accounts by forging his own account number on their deposit slip to masquerading as a licensed jetliner pilot. He liked to play it hot and loose. So this is the 10th one. Number 9. Charles Ponzi, 1882 to 1949. Most of us have heard the term Ponzi scheme. It serves as a cautionary tale. Unmitigated greed on the part of both the conman and the target nearly ends well. Ponzi decided at a young age that his only goal in life was to make money, lots of it, and he did not care where it came from. Arriving in America with only $2.5 to his name, Ponzi quickly rose through the ranks of shady investment bankers, being so bold as to con and cons. After being busted for check fraud and serving time in prison, Ponzi was more determined than ever to take every dime that would come his way. His biggest con began legitimately offering evaluated stock at an incredible markup, then showing his own profits to potential investors. Number 8. Joseph Well, 1977 to 1975. In this list of infamous conmen, Joseph Well. Joseph Yellow Kid Bill was a different breed of conman. While most are motivated by the thrill of the con or the allure of easy money, Will seemed to be driven by contempt of his fellow man. With a smooth nature and a slick tongue, one day he would be an idle man sharing portions of a company that didn't exist, and the next day he would be a baron offering to share in his good fortune. In one of his few legitimate jobs, he uncovered a scheme by fellow co-workers to skim money from the interest on accounts. Number 7. Victor Lustig, 1890 to 1947. Ever wish you had a machine that would crank out money as it was needed? Evidently, you are not alone, because it was that very machine that Lustig sold to numerous investors. Lustig's niche in the con world was the ability to see a need and fulfill it. He worked wonders at making the impossible seem quite plausible. His most infamous con was selling the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal not once but twice. The first buyer was too embarrassed to go to the authorities once he realized how gullible he had been, leaving the door wide open for lusting to return a few years later and revisit his most daring con. Number 6. George Parker, 1872 1936. Parker was a conman's conman. His exploits were so outrageous as to defy belief, and yet his cons worked like a charm. He had an uncanny instinct for drawing gullible investors with what would seem like obviously crackpot ideas. He sold the Brookline Bridge on a regular basis for years. This is funny. George Parker. Number 5. Soapy Smith. Soapy Smith, number 5 in Infamous Conmen list. Soapy Smith was the master of the shill game. By promising something and delivering nothing, he helped perfect the art of the street corner con. His signature con was selling bars of soap on a street corner, waiting until a crowd had gathered, and then making show of wrapping a couple of bars with $100 bills inside. Using a plan to find the first bill, he would then use a sleight of hand to remove the remaining bill. As the crowd was worked into a freezy paying for a bar of soap that might have the lucky bill in it. So number 4 is Eduardo di Valfiano. Valfiano was a connoisseur of the long con. His most famous job required a great deal of planning and forethought. He worked with an inside employee at the Louvre in Paris and had him simply walk out the front door with the Mona Lisa. Sounds like an audacious act. Well, we are just getting started. Before the theft of perhaps the world's best known piece of art, he had quietly commissioned a number of forgeries and had them shipped to different points around the world. His main goal was not keeping the actual painting, but to ensure the theft received a great deal of worldwide publicity. Number 3, James Hughes, born in 1959. Hughes' specialty in the con world was the burgeoning art of identity theft. While certainly not the first to try this con, he was certainly one of the most persistent. Using the identity of dead infants, he slowly worked his way up the ladder. First, he attended Palo Alto High School using the birth information of a child who would have been 16 years of age. This is while Hogg was actually 11 years older than his claimed identity. You would think that might have made him stick out, but he had such an affable nature of favored the statues of orphan that most people simply look him as his word. Number 2, Robert Hendy Freegard, born in 1971. Henry Freegard was an unusual type of con artist. His con was more about the power play and manipulating people than aiming for the big money. By claiming to be a secret operative of Britain's famed MI6, he used brainwashing techniques and fear to see if he could make people bend to his will. He would con for money as well, but his main drive seemed to be seeing just how far he could make people go based on his words alone. The last and number one is Bernard Cornfield in 1927 to 1995. Bernard Cornfield is considered one of the most dangerous form of conman. The conman in the business suit, a natural salesman, he used loopholes in his businesses to make himself a robber baron on a worldwide stage. He utilized loopholes in the laws of different countries and strategically placed his businesses close to borders borders in case of the need to make a mad dash to a more loophole friendly environment. So that's all. These are the top 10 infamous conmen in the crime list.